It all begins with a huge tree that took root in this land. Its name was Yggdrasil. It swiftly grew and blanketed the whole planet. Along with it, many worlds emerged that appeared to be based on games. One of them was named Labyrinth, and folks knew it as the contest of the deities. The issue is that not everybody could become one of those participants. In what seems like a building quarry, people are wrapping up their shift. Among them, there's a fellow there with an orange coat, removing his helmet, when abruptly someone approaches from behind and informs 77 that he did a fine job today. He's got some nice items to swap, and asks if he wants to purchase it for very little. There was a data card, and he's certain it's one of the good ones, but in the midst of the elderly man's clarification, the youngster just dashes off. The old fellow keeps pondering that this jerk thinks too highly of himself, but he's just like everyone else in that spot, a worthless piece of garbage deserted by everyone, just like all those who are there beneath the grandeur of all the wealth that Agriel brought. Clearly, there are the shattered and penniless people, and in the center of all that, there was a slot machine store. The hero grabs the door handle and already hears folks inside yelling or requesting their points back. He strolls up to one of the devices while everyone is shouting, wanting to wager one more time and saying that this time they'll transform their life. As he settles in the seat, he greets the place where everything can shift, the good old chance box, legalized gambling for those who want to pursue luck, and there goes the hero attempting once again to alter his existence. The scarce item available today was a permit to make an account. For the hero, this might have been the sole opportunity he'd ever have. On the display, it asks if he wants to unlock 10 boxes, and he naturally clicks yes, saying he still has faith. The first box then descends from the heavens, and he gets an amazing N-rank toothbrush. Man, N-rank. He had never even seen a grade that low. At this stage, we're about to hit, the Greek letters. He naturally just proceeds to the next box, but by the heap of junk piling up behind him, you can tell he's not having much fortune. Another N-rank, then comes an R-rank, which is more garbage. He's heard that things like SR and SR exist, but he's been through this many times and has never seen anything like that. Recalling his mom in the clinic, all he desired was a shot. That's when something appeared in front of his eyes. The device was shining like a cosmos. He wondered if that was an SR, but by the glow coming from the skies, it looked more like an SSR, which is a super unique rare. Now that I consider it, I never even knew what SSR actually meant. The hero is trembling all over, saying to himself he never pictured this day would arrive, a wonder he could only dream of. Clutching the card in his hand, he says that not quitting until now was worth it. At last, he could be a part of Yggdrasil. This was a permit to create an account. You could become part of the labyrinth, which was based on many games, and of course, the only way to enter them was by making an avatar with an account. Even though the avatars were digital forms that didn't exist in reality, you could fetch items from the labyrinth into the real world, and those items fetched from there were worth a fortune and changed the way society functioned. Nowadays, the entire community revolves around Yggdrasil, and the ones managing everything are the top players. He looks like the contest turned, didn't it? A slap in the face of all the moms who say playing 10,000 hours of League of Legends is a squander of time. I have to be prepared if Yggdrasil appears. Who knows? The trouble is, in this realm, only a few folks receive the privilege to create an account, and now, already sprinting with a grin on his face, he finally became one of the fortunate ones. He swings open the door thrilled, saying, this is his opportunity to begin everything anew. But the instant his face is outside, he takes a club strike right in the mouth. Next moment, he's sprawled on the pavement. Gradually, he regains awareness, clearly not grasping what just occurred. The leader then asks if this is the fellow, and the inked one replies, yes. The lucky one, who actually, was unlucky since they saw that he obtained it. The fellow snatches the card and hands it to the leader, who, gazing at it, says he never thought there was one of these cards except in those extremely costly auctions. The hero, though, clutches onto the fellow's trousers and says he can't take it. He was the one who got it from the device. But, bro, we're in the slum, right? Where there's no cash, there's no law either. Did you enjoy that heavy societal critique? The leader just orders them to trample on the youngster. With that, our lad gets turned into a flapjack, but even while getting pummeled, he grabs the leader again and demands he return the account. The fellow, though, seizes his head and asks if he forgot what it's like to live in this realm as a nameless nobody. Anything good he gets from the store has to be paid for. After all, they control things around here. But not wanting to be unjust, he says he'll give the youngster a present. He touches his forehead, saying they always make fair exchanges. With that, the hero receives 30,000 points in his setup, which was enough for one more single spin on the wheel. The fellow tells him that with this, he took what the youngster got in one spin, and now the youngster can take another, so it's equal. Before our lad could even grumble, boom, face first on the pavement again. But the youngster is stubborn and once more goes to grab the fellow's trousers, but man, he may be tough, but he's still human, right? He just collapses to the ground for good. With that, it starts pouring, and the fellows stay there, heading out to eat something tasty, while leaving our lad there, man smooching the pavement. One of the bald fellows then tells the leader to take a peek. The youngster was actually rising back up. The fellows can't fathom how the heck this jerk is still managing to stand. Then the setup starts giving some warnings that his vital signs were dropping. He urgently needed to get to the clinic's hospital as quick as possible. The leader starts wondering if maybe he accidentally went soft on the fellow because it just doesn't add up. And the hero, once again, starts heading back to the gambling shop. Man, some don't believe it, while others say that's the kind of commitment needed to get an SSR. But whatever, they're gonna linger around and keep an eye on him, and if he gets something nice again, they'll just do another fair swap. The bald fellow, though, asks what they're going to do if the youngster dies in the shop, to which the leader replies that they'll just haul the body out of there, and that's it. After all, he's a nobody unknown, so no one's going to care. Meanwhile, the setup keeps alerting the hero that his vital signs keep falling. The ache was sort of fading away, like he was about to lose awareness. Breathing was tough. He couldn't even hear what folks around him were saying. Totally quaking, he trudges through the throng. He goes to one of the gambling devices but tumbles to the ground, drags himself, and rises back up to attempt one final spin. He reaches with his finger to press the key, but the setup warns that his vitals had reached a dire state. At that instant, all he could think was that his life really had been rubbish. That's when, in the midst of the spot, everyone seemed to see the Yggdrasil tree itself. The leader couldn't even tell what precisely, that was because of how much it was gleaming, and abruptly the hero's body started to look sort of digitized. The setup says an emergency has been detected, and the condition was critical. The only rescue approach was a forced transformation into a character, and with that, the Yggdrasil setup asks him to pick the character's name. Abruptly, the hero finds himself with the name Ruki. He's there, sort of baffled, not grasping where he is or what's occurring. A note then says that, because he revealed secret info from the guild, he was banned. He glances around, saying he would never do something like that, but the ruling is given, and all accusations are accepted. With that, his status is stripped. The hero seems to recognize that voice, and two odd beings greet him to the life of a nobody. Our fellow tries to defend himself, saying he didn't do anything, but a cloaked figure nears from the side, saying, "It's too late now. It was time for 717 to rise." With that, he awakens and, peering to the side, sees himself in a weird digital realm. That spot really didn't feel like reality, and he didn't know if he was deceased or if this was the afterlife. When abruptly, a strange item that looked like some sort of armband appears and tells him to choose a name. Our lad asked why the heck there was a floating cleaner chatting to him, but the tiny bot told him to show some respect. It was the setup box known as Legan. Then it praised him for being the first individual in existence to get a UR-ranked item. The lad had no clue what the heck that thing was babbling about. As far as he knew, the SSR was the top rank. Eigen then said it would clarify that where he was now was right in the center of the dividing line between reality and the virtual realm, and the reason he needed a name now was to complete the transformation and access the labyrinth. But our lad knew that for that, he'd need an avatar and a contest account. However, the bot says that's just a human restriction. He, on the other hand, doesn't need anything like that. Besides that, because of the dire state he was in, he started a forced transformation, linking his body to Yggdrasil. Without further hold-up, he was supposed to go ahead and select the character name so they could begin this. Our hero still hadn't grasped anything. He didn't know if this was a fantasy or reality, but there was a possibility that this was the chance he had been seeking. And with that, he picks the name Ruki. The options are finalized, and he starts to be moved to the labyrinth contest. The instant he opens his eyes, he finds himself in a realm called Phantom. He stood still for a few seconds without saying anything, sensing the breeze hitting his hair and his feet steady against the soil. That was totally different from any simulation he had ever undergone. Evidently, this was the labyrinth he had always wished to enter. But in the midst of all that thrill, some skeletons appear beside him. The first one attempts to strike, and he manages to evade it by taking a tiny step back. Then he starts sprinting, asking himself why there were so many critters if, in theory, he should be in the guide. At least they were only level 1 skeletons, which were frail to physical blows. Ruki starts hollering to open the status panel, but Eigen just replies for him to quit asking for silly stuff. Our lad then wants to know where the gear is. Usually, when you begin a contest, you get something. But the bot explains that since he got a UR item, he didn't need to follow any of the labyrinth's regulations. Also, He wouldn't be aided by any abilities, stats, levels, or any sort of perks given by the labyrinth or the realm called Phantom. As long as he had Legan by his side, all he needed to do was test his fortune in a chance box. At least he had the novice bonus. After logging in for 7 straight days, he'd obtain a voucher guaranteeing an SR item. Since this was his first time, he gets 100 vouchers from Igon, plus 5 more vouchers for entering the realm called Phantom. Ruki rejoices that at least he got a bunch of vouchers and says he wants to start opening them right away. The lad is courageous. He opens the first item, grabs it, and already calls out the skeletons, saying, "Now it's going to be simple." But the worn mop he got didn't last long. No, he goes right back to sprinting, cursing out Ligon and asking where his fortune is. Then he tosses a wig at the skeleton, which was the second item he got. He's dashing around, leaving a bunch of stuff on the soil, when abruptly the bot tells him to be cautious, but it's too late. He falls flat on his face like a fool. Man, the tiny bot sporting the wig comes swinging a blade. Then, finally, one of the boxes beside him gleams. He manages to block the strike because he got a short blade in there, right? Clearly, it was pretty average, but better than nothing. He cheers the decent weapon and charges onward. He says it's just a level 1 skeleton, there's no way he can lose. But I think our player here isn't much of a player, because he tried to swing the blade at the skeleton's skull. Naturally, the outcome was that he took a jab to the shoulder, and the blade did absolutely nothing. Ryuki, though, is puzzled. Why did he take a jab that stuck in his shoulder instead of just losing HP? Eigen explains once again that the regulations for them are totally different, so HP isn't a thing. He's risking his actual existence. Seeing the skeleton nearing, Ryuki wonders if he got into this chaos just to perish in such a pointless way. Then he charges onward to block the strike as 2 boxes tumble down. As soon as they hit the soul, he manages to deflect the skeleton's blow, charges in, and sends it soaring. He's baffled for a moment. It felt like he had used a technique and his body moved on its own. That's when he sees that from the boxes, he got 2 S-rank techniques, one for defense and one for blade mastery. And Eigen says that he's the only one who isn't restricted by the realm of Yggdrasil. If an item or technique shows up in the box, it gets moved to him instantly. Another skeleton was approaching to strike from the side, but the SR-ranked parry triggers, and he manages to deflect the strike. With that, the critter is left sort of stunned, and he lands a clean slash on it. Man, who was it again that said you couldn't slice skeletons with a blade? Huh. Who was the fool that said that 3 minutes ago? That was clearly thanks to the SR-ranked blade mastery. Ryuki now grasped that those techniques shouldn't even exist in the realm of Phantom, since Yggdrasil has a bunch of different spots, but with his knack, he was ignoring the laws and limits. Eigen then says he always knew the lad was fortunate. It's no surprise he pulled a UR item. When Ryuki glanced back, he saw his first SR box right away. He grinned and went to grab the box, saying, "Something's not right here." But a marvel was occurring in his existence. 3 skeletons come at him to strike, but with a box in hand, he turns and slashes all of them at once, already cautioning if they're going to give him this much fortune, he's going to exploit it for all it's worth. The realm he's in is called Phantom, a contest deemed a masterpiece crafted by the firm Lashia. Besides that, out of all the contests in the labyrinth, it's the most favored, and the one that everyone experiences. Ryuki was there, man, slaying skeletons relentlessly. Finally, he was one of the fortunate ones who was also part of this. The lad was piling up skeletons, but the points he got were instantly turned into credits to pull more boxes. Things were totally different for him, and he doesn't even have a grade. Also, from the sums he did, he'd have to slay 15 skeletons just to try his fortune one single time. Now was time for him to take a peek at what to do with that SSR item he pulled. To him, it was something absurd, didn't even seem logical for it to exist, but Eigen says, if it's in front of him, then it exists. No surprise it's SSR man. Items like that are always nice, but our lad stows it away, saying for now he'll keep it sealed. That's because it's going to be ideal for handling that individual or, actually, their entire guild. For now, he's going to conceal that strength for the perfect instant. The techniques needed roulette credits to advance. At least for him, things were real straightforward. All he needed was for the contest to keep dispatching monsters and for him to keep slaying them. He enjoyed it when the only thing he had to do was keep toiling. Sometime later, a blast occurs in the woods, and another skeleton tumbles to the soil, leaving behind a gem in front of him. This was already his 3rd day in the contest, and clearly, he had been tackling all the daily tasks and grinding all day long. He finally managed to collect 500 credits, which was enough to do 10 pulls. Man, I think that's better than Genshin Impact, right? Grind 3 days and got 10 pulls. Not that awful at all. Eigen is there cheering, saying he's eager to see what the lad's gonna pull this time, but Ryuki spends 400 credits to boost both techniques. The bot freaks out, saying this jerk should try his fortune, it's way more enjoyable. Our lad wants to know the odds, and the setup explains 70% chance for N rank, 2.7% for SR, and 0.3% for SR. Then he wants to know why his stash is full of junk. The bot tells him to quit griping, he already pulled several nice techniques. But Ryuki replies that he's only going to unlock boxes with the daily task rewards. The rest of the credits he gets he'll spend to enhance things. The bot says it understands but then asks, "So how long are you planning to linger here in the guide forest?" But our hero is careful, man. He needs arms and to advance his techniques. Only then will he depart that spot. He's someone who knows this realm better than anyone, and he needs to utilize his insight from the past to the fullest. The starting woods wasn't an exception, and he was going to ensure to take full advantage of it. That's because it's a spot where, once you depart, you can't return. So before taking chances out in the realm, he needed to maximize it. He then tells Eigen that he needs to rehearse a lot to grasp what the boundaries of the setup are and what he can actually do even without having any stats. Evidently 7 days have already elapsed, and of course advancing was starting to slow down more and more. At least both SR rank techniques were already at level 3. Sadly, there was no choice to advance him further, which shows this is the boundary of the guide. But then Eigen gives him a little tap on the face, saying it's time to claim the 7-day login prize. Even though it was a guaranteed SR, there was still a possibility it could be a useless SR, but man, it's all or nothing, and he orders the box to unlock. The golden bundle tumbles to the soil, shines, and then he seems puzzled, asking if something like that can actually exist in this realm. He'd obtained an SR rank blade, but at the same time, it's a blade. It also has a pistol built into it. That one's effective, but he knows that, considering the Phantom Realm's tale, arms like that shouldn't exist, which means if anyone sees something like that, the realm is going to go wild. He tries it out by doing a little light slice on a tree, which instantly gets cut like butter. Even considering that he has blade mastery, the strength of that thing was out of the usual. That's when he recalls that when he entered the contest, he was basically perishing in real life and wonders what occurs if he perishes here. Eigen explains that if he perishes, he'll obtain a backup and will be revived, but he wouldn't want to experience that since rebuilding the body would hurt like heck. Ryuki, though, replies that he doesn't care about the ache and tells him to proceed and use the vouchers. He needed to boost his battle strength even more, even if just a tad. Sometime later, he's already re-outfitted with a rank R set, but hey, at least it's better than nothing. He then tells Eigen to prepare and start capturing everything from this moment on. Not a single instant of his gameplay should be missed. The bot asks what the file name should be, and he says to call it the disc that retreated but fled from the pit. The bot says okay, but wants to know why he abruptly wants to capture something like that. Our lad explains that most of the contests from the firm Roger were sort of hurried in creation, and even this one, which was one of the most well-crafted, wasn't that different. There are still some glitches, like, for instance, right in front of him is this leader knight who is supposed to appear way later in the contest. The setup announces that this is the Black Knight of Chaos, a critter blessed by the deity of gloom, and with that, a sudden task appears to eradicate him. He would obtain 10 vouchers and 1 guaranteed S rank voucher. For someone who was already plotting to slay the critter, getting a bonus on top was ideal. The leader raises his blade, telling the lad to prove himself, and slashes down hard. Ryuki, though, with that mighty blade and level 3 parry technique, manages to deflect the monster's strike backwards. Just as he anticipated, since he doesn't have grades, he's confined to what his techniques can do. With that, he tells the knight to prepare and lands a solid hit to the chest, but the blow doesn't seem to do anything. Eigen praises him for his courage and says it looks like his blows are working. Clearly, Ryuki is baffled, especially since he didn't deal any harm. That's when Eigen tells him to recall he's in a more lifelike realm. Then the hero grasps he was battling like a character attempting to chip away HP by striking armor, but he wasn't bound by the regulations anymore, and in this instance needed to battle more realistically. With that, he hurls himself at the leader in quest of a real weak spot. The knight attempts to block his blow, but Ryuki manages to shield with the blade and get nearer. He jabs the blade deep into the armor and fires a shot right in the center of the arm. The limb tumbles to the soil, and the knight lets out a moan of torment. Ryuki is finally starting to grasp what Eigen keeps saying about him not having HP, but at the same time being able to shatter the regulations of the contest. He didn't have to fret about the existence of the critters. What mattered was battling in a lifelike way. In the midst of all that fog in his head, man, out of nowhere, the monster strikes him right in the shoulder. The issue is Ryuki knows that the Black Knight shouldn't have any distant strike pattern. Then he sees the odd energy that struck him also emanating from the knight's arm, and the knight says that whoever endangers the lord deserves to undergo the pit. Ruki manages to evade, but he's already starting to think maybe he misjudged this critter. Maybe the leader that appears at the conclusion of the contest is different from this one in the guide. After all, when you perish in the starting hamlet, you're dispatched to the first zone, which means no one's ever battled this fellow twice. He's in the midst of shielding against a bunch of blows, but of course, several of them are striking him too. One lands a direct hit right in his gut. The scene then shifts to our lad slamming his hand on a desk, saying he doesn't grasp. The plan had gone awry again, and he has no clue what the issue was. Back in those times, he belonged to Guild Lindsay, and he was an examiner, the fellow who collects the info. But he says the zone where he was attempting to devise the plan had already been seized by Linful. Ruki insists, saying this time it's way more effective. Besides, they'd be a bit ahead of the other guilds. But the fellow just tosses the documents away and says he's not even a participant or someone with an incredible rank, so why is he attempting to make choices for Guild Lindsay? In this spot, they don't do swaps. That was the choice made by the finest one there, Linful, so why was he challenging it? Ryuki is back in the chamber slamming the desk again, saying, "Those fools keep up with that feudal plaything just so Linful can retain the ranks." But sadly, he had to settle down and concentrate on his mom's operation expenses. That was way more crucial. Abruptly, someone shouts Ryuki's name, and he leaps. The individual apologizes, saying they thought he might want some brew. It's another scholar named Cynthia, who already says that evidently the manuals he was crafting got declined again. He looks wary, and she strolls up, asking if he wants a little aid. Not the sort of aid we're hoping he wants, but he says he wants aid with some private info to complete the manual. She says okay and grins, saying that since he wants it, she'll fetch her finest. Sometime later, Ruki is back at the clinic, telling his mom not to fret. He already booked the operation. She asks about the expenses, but he says it's all okay. The guild have finally endorsed it. His mom gets all joyful and embraces him, saying she's proud of how diligently he labors. He replies that everything's going to resolve and says that diligence really was bringing him fortune. But in the next scene, he's being ousted from Guild Lindsay for disclosing secrets. He attempts to say something, but the fellow just tells him not to even justify himself. They already have ample proof. Even though he had been discreet, they had already gotten info from Linful and Cynthia. Oh, that jerk, look, in Linful's embrace, even that cursed lady man. She deceived me with that little grin. Now I already want him pulling out an SSR pistol and blasting that wretched lady right in the skull. And that darn Linful is still there, saying that he must be the fool Ryuki, the one who kept dispatching those laughable manuals. Staring the lad with that dumb look on his face really riled him up. Then he turns to Cynthia and says she endured a lot to have to be near that piece of garbage. But today they were heading out to Revol. With that, he strolls off, saying Ryuki should know where he originated. There's no use in being an examiner if you can't even examine properly, let alone attempting to craft a manual so others can outdo you. Truth is, he doesn't know where he fits. Then he exits the door saying, "It's a pity, but the trivial existence he had has concluded." At that instant, our lad lost the little pride he still had in that town and plummeted to unknown rank. Man, at that stage, all the cash, status, esteem, and kin he had were stripped away. He even lost his title. That's capitalism at its peak, bro. You lose your essence, not even your title's left behind. But now Ruki is back in the dungeon, fending off the Night's Strike. Who's amazed that he's still enduring after taking a hit like that? Our hero keeps resisting, and then the monster hoists its blade, saying that ultimately, there's no way he's escaping this. His strike comes full force at Ryuki, who wonders if this is really going to be the conclusion again. How different would this chance be from his prior existence? Pondering of his mother and Cynthia, he vows he's going to make her pay for everything. Then he parries the knight's gut strike, draws his blade, and surges forward. He seizes the knight's skull, rams the blade into the helm, and recalls those two swears. The mag tumbles to the soil, and he vows he won't pardon either of them. With that, the critter detonates. Man, for slaying a black knight at a low score, he obtains 15,000 experience. On top of that, his urgent task grants 10 vouchers and 1 guaranteed SR voucher. While dissolving, the knight moves him to surpass oblivion and venture beyond. Ryuki just replies that there's no need to declare it, he's going to keep advancing forward. Igon captured everything, and now a fair-haired fellow is observing, wanting to discover when the clip was shared. The other individual responds that it was just a few hours earlier and asks if he desires them to reach out, but the fellow replies he doesn't require that. He recalls the visage. He just desires the vehicle ready and also desires to discover where Linful is at. That fellow, by the way, is the true chief of Guild Lindsay, Gabriel Darius. Evidently, Linful wasn't just the mightiest in skirmishes. The clip our lad posted on IGTube is, naturally, sparking a commotion on social platforms. No one can believe someone went solo against the bugged guide mentor. What didn't add up was that if it was in Phantom, there's no way he could have wielded a blade with a pistol affixed. On top of that, those deflecting techniques seem far too odd. All of that fact made folks speculate whether the clip was false or if the lad was exploiting a glitch that shouldn't exist. Man, the thing's already playing nearly like a hit on the grand screen, and no one can believe how swift he was responding. Another examiner from Guild Lindsay, named Laguna, desires to discover who this Rue 77 truly is. She deems herself a master-level examiner, but even she can't fathom how he defeated that leader. She informs the team that this certainly appears like some kind of glitch they should already recognize, but the fellow with the spectacles insists that the face is certainly who he's thinking of, but it really shouldn't be logical. Then we see Linful turning around, questioning, "What's this chatter about Ryuki? Darn it. Why are bad guys always lingering around the attractive ones?" And there's Linful stating he has no clue who that fellow is, but the man in the suit replies that the researcher from 3 years ago, who used to create some fairly reliable manuals, the one Linfield requested to be removed from the guild, became a nobody. Linfield simply responds that the world is packed with people with that same tale. The man wants to know if he viewed the dark magic video, and Linfield says yes, he already watched it. To him, it seemed much more like some sort of glitch, because obviously it's impossible to defeat that creature in the beginner stage. Then the man standing says Linful needs to realize that the person in the video is exactly Ryuki, and he should understand what that implies. Linful turns around furious and tells his sibling to stop talking about that jerk. Since when are they scaredy? Cats who worry about someone like that. They should even waste brain power thinking about that kid. Gabriel just chooses to stay silent. Man, another guy approaches and asks what they're going to do because he says this Ryuki seems to be trying to provoke them deliberately. It looks like a setup, so they better be cautious. First, they'll need to discover where he went after being expelled from the guild to know what the next steps are. He walks away, muttering to himself, "There's no need to hurry, they have time to collect details." The issue is figuring out how his sibling is going to manage it. Back with our boy, Eigen says he's already healed 87% and can move. Our guy stands up, soaked in blood, saying the agony was worse than he expected because Eigen explains that, naturally, it was several organs and muscles were ripped, not to mention multiple bone breaks. But Ryuki grins, saying that soon he'll be accustomed to it, especially because he's going to face it countless times. He keeps advancing and spots a tower on the horizon. It was finally time to bid farewell to the beginner stage. The demonic tower is the main feature of this world. The problem is, it's something he can't enter yet. He'll need to first improve several abilities in the dungeons around the tower. As they move forward, Ivan says he thinks it was wild that he shared the video. Now a bunch of folks know about him. They'll want to eliminate him, but Ryuki says he doesn't think it'll be that severe. Most folks will just assume it's a glitch, and glitches happen frequently. Besides, the person at the top of Lindsay tends to be much more careful, so if he'll want to gather information before deciding how to act, and that's exactly why he needs as much notice as possible. The more famous he becomes, the fewer choices Lindsay has to act against him because everything would be revealed publicly. Not to mention, if that transformation works the way the robot described, he can conceal his body from this game world whenever he wishes. It's like, right? Like he's kind of signed out, but since he doesn't have a real body in the real world, his sign out state is like existing in the void, or at least that's what he believes it is. And the little robot says he's using the system in a pretty clever way. Ryuki, on the other hand, is just thinking he can't wait to get payback on that darn Linful. He's certain that once he starts making enough commotion, that guy will attempt something, and that's exactly when he's going to attack. The system then says it's tired of all the talking, it's time to open some tickets. He had 20 pulls, 2 guaranteed SR pulls, and 15,000 points. Time to start spinning and try his fortune, but Ryuki says going to the city is the priority because he has to save a revival spot. However, Ivan explains that this only happens to people who are brought from the other world. His body actually already exists in this world. At that point, he activates the transformation system and returns to that shop where he perished. I'm a bit puzzled, but I think what happened is, like, he now actually exists in that world, and when he transforms, he comes from that world into this one, while folks from Earth actually go from Earth to there. In the end, everybody's interacting with each other, right? But I think that's kind of the concept. He's there, kind of confused, looking at himself, saying he was just about to die, but now he's not feeling anything. The system says that's because he's just too awesome. Besides, first, it's best to block the cameras in that place, but man, here come those thugs again, already appearing, saying that the jerk looks pretty healthy for someone who supposedly perished. No way, right? These thugs, they set up some tent outside and just linger around all day. The alarm sounds, he just gets up and walks out. Ryuki isn't foolish. He smashes the window and takes off running. Iman says he's searching for an escape path, and our guy follows the directions, but he ends up in a dead end. He punches the robot, saying the jerk just led him straight to his doom. Apparently, but the little robot explains that there's a reason for everything. The thugs then catch up to Ryuki and say he's a jerk for making everyone run around at this hour of the night. Now they want to know what the kid pulled from the machine yesterday at the moment he vanished out of nowhere. If he doesn't want to die, he just needs to hand it over, and everything will be fine. Obviously, no way is Ryuki handing over Eigen like that. The robot tells him to grab a wooden blade that's nearby. That's because, at the moment, he can't bring over any items from that world, so he's going to have to use whatever's close by. Ryuki picks it up, saying, "This is a joke. How is he supposed to battle these guys with that?" But a little system window pops up. The thugs start laughing, asking if the kid really thinks he's going to win using something like that. The Tegran of a Jersey guy charges forward, telling him to surrender now. It'll hurt less, but then, whack, he takes a hit to the arm and then a smack to the face. Everyone jumps back in surprise, and the boss immediately orders everyone to go in. There's even some office dude in the middle of the thugs, man. But Ryuki says this is what's crazy, even in this world outside the game. He still has access to his skills, folks. He has no idea why it's possible, but he's sure it's ridiculously powerful. A few seconds earlier, when he smacked that guy, everyone got confused. They seemed to have seen a strange light. The boss, though, grits his teeth and tells everyone to go in, as if they're going to lose to one unknown kid. But now the jerk is sure that kid must have pulled some seriously good item to be able to fight them like that. Still, they're part of the Black Snake, the group that controls the unknown's territory, but his expression changes, his face goes dark, and the next second, there's just one bald dude left, taking a hit to the head. Ryuki even asks, "Is that really all you little crooks can do?" At the moment he picked up that wooden blade from the ground, he understood what's going on. Most people send their body to interact with the avatar in the game, but he, on the other hand, sent his own body into the game, and that's why he feels so much pain over there. Obviously, the advantage is completely uneven because the stronger his body gets in the game, the stronger he gets in real life. I don't even know where from, but a bunch more crooks show up, man. They all charge in, but man, against someone with SSR, they've got no chance. A light tap to the leg or arm, and the bones are already shattered. Then our boy walks up, calling for the leader, thanking him for the help he had yesterday. The chump is spinning a stick, trying to hit something, telling him not to come any closer, but Ryuki just blocks it with a level 3 parry and knocks the weapon right out of his hands. Right away, he asks if the guy's gonna stop right there. He can't just walk away unharmed after all his underlings got beaten up. The leader throws himself to grab the stick, shouting at him to shut up, but gets smacked right on the hand, immediately crying out in pain. He tries to throw a little punch in anger, but gets a club to the mouth too, falls to the ground like garbage, and Ryuki says that now he understands why this power feels so great. At this moment, he must be feeling just as good as they felt when they stomped on him that day, but he's sure that the leader's busted up face suits him way better. The guy starts begging for mercy, asking him to stop, but Ryuki says that the card he stole that day was the last hope he had, and even then, the guy still took it, so now they're not leaving until they've also lost every bit of hope they had. The guy, crying, says that no one unknown ever does something like that and gets away with it, but Ryuki, man, raises the club, saying that unfortunately, nobody's gonna hear about what happened here. The chump is about to beg again. We see one of his eyes spinning and his head snaps sideways. Darn, I thought he was going to be the kind of MC that actually kills, but nope. The robot's just asking why he let them live. Ruka replies that it's because of what the robot did, and to avoid raising suspicion. What the robot did was enter the thugs' minds and alter their vision, so they don't even know Ryuki is still alive. "Well, I'll forgive you this time," he says, "but next time, I better see some killing, got it?" "Yeah, protagonist, for me you got to kill, don't come at me with this forgiving the villain nonsense." Then he says they're going to need to hide Eigen's existence. Nobody in this world can know that an item like him exists. He grabs some random little knife and realizes the aura activates as long as he's holding something that represents a blade or a sword. He can still use it, and honestly, this knife was way more convenient than walking around with the freaking blade. Ryuki was about to ask something, but the robot seems to read his mind and answers before he even opens his mouth, says no, his body will age faster in the real world. That's because his true existence is now inside Egg Drizzle. Outside, sometime later, our boy is talking to the little thug, saying that this modern world is amazing, people recover real fast now. It made sense why he let the guy live. He tells him to hand over the ticket, otherwise things will get messy. The guy obviously says he's saving up money but needs more time, but that little knife's already pressed against his forehead, and our boy says that since he spared his life, it's best he doesn't forget that. The guy apologizes, and Ryuki tells him to start walking. They're gonna get it right now. In the red light district, there's this poor guy scratching his neck all weird. Looks like he's got some kind of evil virus or something. One of the gang members shows up and kicks him out of the way, telling him to get lost. That place is a store called Shuenku, and the guy says most deals go through there. Ryuki instantly realizes it's probably where his ticket got sold. When he walks in, a guy in a cloak notices a customer entered. It sounded like the voice of an old person, and our boy asks if he's the owner. I don't know if this person's really that old, and no, I don't even know if it's a guy, I don't know what it is, but I meet a shop owner and his name is Suzuki. The robot, in a digital form that only Ryuki can see, says that thing in front of him isn't a person, it's analyzing his data in real time. Our boy had already noticed the strange voice and says that cybernetic robots like that should have already been banned. Suzuki says it's impressive that he noticed so easily, but it's absurd to talk about laws to someone who works in the black market. Then our boy wants to know what happened to the account creation ticket. Suzuki glances at the beaten-up thug and already gets the idea. He explains that item is one of the most popular there is, so it was sold as soon as it came in. He asks if that's all, and Ryuki says no. He pulls out a bag and says he's there to make some trades, since that's what this place specializes in. Suzuki goes to check it out, saying he's curious to see what the kid brought, and he seems surprised. Right? I think it's those orbs he was collecting in the dungeon earlier. He asks all of this, these are mana orbs, and asks if he even knows how valuable each one is, but Ryuki answers that clearly he's being underestimated just because he's an unknown. Obviously, he knows something as basic as that. At the very least, our boy should understand prices. He used to be a planner in a guild. He's not foolish, I hope so. Anyway, in the dungeons, there are two types of items, the regular ones, like swords and shields and all that, and some called specials. The specials, for example, are things like potions, mana orbs, that kind of stuff. The higher the grade, the purer it is, and the more power you can get out of it. But Suzuki replies that it doesn't make sense to sell something like that on the black market if the price is already set by the regular market. Why is he trying to do that here? Ryuki just tells him not to get involved and to go ahead and sell. That's what he came there to negotiate. Suzuki, however, finds it odd. An unknown who doesn't have access to the game shouldn't have mana stones to sell. Then he already tells Luga, right, that little thug there, to vanish from the place. The guy's all shook, wondering if Ryuki authorizes it, who just tells him to scram. With that, the door explodes right on the poor guy. The seller then says that, yeah, it really is strange for an unknown to be selling mana stones unless he stole them. But he also knows of someone who's been defying logic. Ryuki is about to ask what it is, and the guy says he's truly surprised the star of that video just walked into his shop. With that, he opens his arms, welcoming Rue 77. If he wanted to hide his identity, he should have been much more careful, especially carrying a mana stone like that. It's an item dropped specifically from the Black Chaos Knight, and you can see that on the app. With all that said, he wants to know what Rue 77 is doing in his store. Yeah. This modern world is crazy. When you post 10 seconds of a video, and everybody already knows who you are. Ruka just admits that it's him, and says they should focus on the business. Suzuki says fine and wants to know what he's looking for. Our boy points at his head and says he's looking for a mod. The seller says he must be going nuts, doesn't even know what that is, but Ryuki responds that he knows they're apps that artificially change some things inside the labyrinth. Even an unknown like him knows about that. The seller then says that, apparently, he doesn't know anything. Most of the mods were cancelled due to limitations or critical failures. Our boy, though, uninterested, just says a black market vendor must be the only one who still has a few stored away. He wants those that reduce the game's difficulty, and he doesn't care about the side effects. Suzuki asks if he didn't see that guy outside the store, scratching his neck. That guy is one of the unlucky ones who tried using a mod and got wrecked, man. What the heck is that? Back in my day, you tried using a little hack, and you got banned. Alright, that's it. The poor guy had his brain fried, and Suzuki says that was from a simple pain reduction mod, and it caused all that. Obviously, the more changes you try to make, the worse the side effects can be. That guy tried to reduce the amount of pain he felt, and now all his other senses are extremely heightened. Basically, he's ruined, and even after removing the mod, he couldn't recover. From insanity to instant death, even spontaneous combustion, all sorts of things can happen, and that's why mods are illegal, but that Ryuki says he's not just some regular player. It's no coincidence he defeated the Chaos Knight. People are already calling him a cheater, so he should know how he plays. He doesn't care about the cost or the risk, If there's any mods sitting in this place, he wants it. Suzuki asks if he wants the ones that were discarded for being extremely dangerous. Ruka just says yes, he wants to take a look. The kid snaps his fingers and says fine, then he can take a look at the ones that were discontinued. If he really has the guts to use something like that, he can start testing. In the box, there are CDs, man, from version 1 to 25. I would never in my life install something from a CD into my head. Are you crazy? But Ruki is there, thinking he knows this stuff is risky, like he has his reasons. That first mod right there was triple power attack, and Igon already says that one's going to be a total failure. Actually, it's just exaggerated numbers and doesn't even have an effect. The next device, in theory, gave the power to see 1 second into the future. Once again, Igon says it's trash, it'll just make his vision blurry. The other mod made your character look amazing, and Igon says that it's possible to do that with some kind of illusion, but it's useless. The other one increased all skill damage by 20%, but it would destroy his brain. Also, it would increase the pain he feels by 3,000 times, which clearly wasn't a good idea. Ryuka already realized that all of this was just junk until he saw one that was a probability manipulator. Igon analyzes it and says that the person who made this was truly a genius. It wasn't very effective, but it increased his luck by between 0.3 and 0.5%, and considering how it would be implemented in our boy, that would probably result in around 0.5 to 1% for him. Ryuki knew that 1% might not seem like much, but when it comes to luck, man, that's a lot. He then turns to Suzuki and says he's going to take 3 mods, including that one. The seller replies that, apparently, he's not all talk, and really did pick out the few that were actually decent from that pile of junk. Obviously, the protagonist finds that peculiar. Why did this jerk offer him trash to begin with? The shopkeeper apologizes and says he wasn't trying to mess with the kid. It's just that another client asked him to take a look at those mods, and he'd already seen a few of them. Then Ryuki wants to know if that request came from the person who created those mods, to which Suzuki replies that soon enough, they'll find out. Besides, he'll give him a special discount, since those things would have never even seen the light of day otherwise. Then some messages appear, asking if he wants to install the applications, but they warn that once he clicks yes, it's irreversible. In his mind, he already decides to install, but then Suzuki says he wants to ask one last thing if these mods work. What is it that he wants to do with his power? The scene doesn't give an answer, man. We see a tree, and some time later, Suzuki is laughing like a lunatic on the ground. Our boy pointed upward and told him that he wants to reach the heavens. He doesn't want to be bronze or silver, not even gold or platinum. He wants to take everyone down along the way and reach the top of that world. That crazy seller, who clearly has some kind of mental issue, replies that he's looking forward to seeing what the kid is going to do. Sometime later, back in the game, he's holding his identification card in the Phantom world. He thought it would be tough since he's an unknown, but obviously no one was going to suspect anything. After all, an unknown shouldn't even be in the game. But now, finally, he had arrived at the starting village. Everyone's joyful, the old man's selling his overpriced apple, and the kids are running around with their silly little faces. In the middle of all that is our boy, impressed at how calm that place seemed. Suddenly, Ian pops up, telling him to start pulling tickets already. It's been a long time since he tried his fortune. Ryuki tells the gacha addict to relax a bit. He doesn't want to draw too much notice, but that's when our boy notices that there are people staring at him oddly. The protagonist explains that he already knows this very well. It seems that NPCs are made to dislike players. Of course, that's because players also don't treat NPCs like people, which in secret ends up creating this vicious cycle. Then a guy in a blue jacket gets slammed to the ground. One with a beanie walks up, asking how the heck he had the nerve to try to rob him. The guy says he's starving, while the protagonist wonders what's going on. Also, the NPC's clothes looked very different from the rest of the people there. Egg explains that this guy seems to have come from another game in the labyrinth called Alien Space, but that game was shut down 3 months ago, or basically, the entire world over there was erased. The only way people could survive was to move to another game in the labyrinth. Now it's explained why there are a bunch of people wearing those odd clothes and starving. Adapting to a completely different world is not something that happens quickly. Egan says that as soon as a world is considered useless by Edriel, it gets erased on the spot, so you better start running because that could even happen to Phantom. Ruku replies that it's all good, as long as he can destroy Linful and that darn guild Lindsay, then he's fine with it. Sometime later, he managed to get a room in an inn and finally had a place to rest. At that very moment, the robot is already talking again, saying, "This is the perfect time to pull some tickets and play gacha." Also, its probability had slightly changed. The NR items had lower chances now, and the SR and SSR were a little better. SSR, which used to be 0.3%, had now increased to 1%, more than 3 times higher. He then tells Zion that the long-awaited moment has come and time to spin the wheel. The robot celebrates immediately, saying he has 40 tickets, 2 with guaranteed SR and 15,000 points. It was going to be enough to open a ton of stuff. Ryuki tells him to start first with the 40 regular tickets. Obviously, his expression wasn't too thrilled, right? A whole bunch of N rank and R rank items in front of the poor guy. A pile of useless junk started stacking up. He falls to his knees in disbelief that he didn't get even one decent thing. Apparently, the mod he got was a lie. He didn't pull a single item above R. The robot, however, says he can already start a toothbrush store. At that, Ryuki grabs the little jerk, saying he's going to turn him into a piece of scrap metal, while the robot is begging to be let go. Suddenly, something shines from the skies. Come 3 guaranteed drops, right? Man, his tone changes, saying he can always count on his buddy. I don't know if he used those guaranteed tickets, but he managed to get a flash step SR skill and an SR instinct. The instinct at level 1 boosted his senses. At max level, it would allow him to even understand the essence of the world. The flash step was pretty obvious, a quick movement ability. Already excited to see the effect, he activates instinct, but at that moment, he didn't feel any difference at all. It didn't seem like anything compared to the other SSR skills he had gotten. He decides to take a look at the system, and there it says he'll have to spend 7,000 points to level up to the next stage, which to him is a total ripoff since the other skills cost 100 to get to level 3. Eigen already says not to spend points on a skill he doesn't even know what it does. It'd be better to enjoy the hype and pull more because that's way more fun. But obviously, Ryuki isn't going to do that, man. He's going to use those points to upgrade his skills. That's what Sword Mastery and Parry go to level 4 and Flash Step to level 2. With that, he had 730 points left, and it cost 400 to take Mastery to level 5. While he's sitting there wondering if he should do it or not, the robot tells him he should go explore more. He should obviously pull more tickets and have fun, but the little bot breaks in half when Ryuki orders the system to take Sword Mastery straight to level 5 man. And then the system says that now that Mastery is maxed out, he can upgrade the rank. Just as he expected, it was worth reaching that limit. When he activates the rank upgrade, a golden light appears, a stone orb forms in the room. He asks Eigen what that is, but the poor bot is lying on the ground, devastated that he didn't get another chance to roll some gacha. The strange object keeps coming down until the system grants him an achievement for having maxed out Mastery. He earns 10 tickets, and apparently, it became Eigen's system Mastery and SR plus skill that not only boosts his sword damage but now gives him a blade aura as well. Ryuki had never even heard of SR plus skills in the Phantom world, so maybe this was the strongest skill on that entire continent. While he's celebrating, arms wide open, the little system is asking why the system of luck, ended up paired with someone this cautious. His whole plan was to witness the glorious downfall of someone driven by greed. Ryuki is already at the door, telling him to stop crying and get moving because now they were finally ready to begin. He wants to know what they're going to do, and obviously, man, it's time to go into the first dungeon. And the plan wasn't just to go into the dungeon but to set the record in it. Ah, you sneaky devil. Now you're going to use those strategies you were selling to that guy Linful. Huh. Going to humiliate everyone in front of the dungeon entrance. A guy with a giant axe asks his group if they're ready. From now on, everyone was supposed to stay alert and not let any items slip by. That's when our protagonist walks past like he's just casually strolling in. The guy immediately calls out to him and asks where he thinks he's going without a group. He should know how dangerous this place is, but our boy just says that he knows very well what he's getting into. The guy starts thinking that, apparently, they've just run into some lunatic they've never seen before, and his buddy next to him, who's so important they didn't even draw eyes on him, says that in the past 3 months, no one has managed to complete this place. The leader is sure it's a waste of time, but there's Man Witch's hideout, and the goal was to break Linful's record. Gunblade ready, aura active, time to break some records. The witch watches from her aura, saying, once again, this jerk has invaded her domain. A filthy intruder like him shouldn't profane this sacred ground with his presence. But it was fine. She had ways to bring judgment upon anyone trying to enter that place. She would personally tear him apart and offer him as a sacrifice. Bab was obviously the boss of the place, and her level was just a series of question marks. Just by entering the dungeon, the sneaky kid got 1 ticket. The only problem was that the place was so dark he couldn't see anything ahead. Like, seriously, I see torches on the wall. This poor guy must be blind. Apparently, the biggest issue with this dungeon is that every time you enter, it completely changes, so it's kind of tough to create a fixed strategy. He's sure that Linful cleared it in 17 hours and 30 minutes. Mom, what the heck? 17 hours in the first dungeon. Might as well bring a wife and start a family while farming. Checking the rankings, he sees second place is held by someone named Aya, or well, a person named Asia, part of the Gao clan, and they only took 8 minutes longer than Linful. Considering they were almost as good as Linful, it's a name worth keeping in mind. Suddenly, he stops and looking up, there's a swarm of mosquitoes. Wait, not mosquitoes, giant bats. The problem is, not only do they move in huge groups, but they also stack a ton of debuffs, so even if you don't die right away, you just keep suffering until you can't take it anymore. But he's already pulling out an item, saying that's a story of the past. He throws something on the ground and says to Igon, "This is how you handle this place." The thing explodes, spreading light everywhere, and if you thought it was a flashbang, you're totally wrong. It was a sound bomb, and now the suckers are falling everywhere with bleeding ears, man. I felt bad for the little bats for a second, but then bam, sword to the chest. The kid has zero mercy. He already cleared the farming zone, slashing everything in sight. He says, "This place isn't that tough once you know the tricks." What he wants to know, though, is why no one's finished this place in the past 3 months. Ivan wants to know why that would be odd, so Ryuki explains that, in theory, this is supposed to be a low difficulty dungeon. For everyone to be struggling this much, something else is going on. They keep going through the cave, and Ivan wants to know if he's sure they're going the right way. Our boy tells him not to worry, he knows the patterns of this place, even if the map always changes. Pygun might not know, but he's written countless strategy guides when he was a researcher. This dungeon right here, he's simulated it thousands of times, so he knows exactly what he's doing. Igan, however, comments that they've already passed through this area like 12 times. It wouldn't be a shame to admit he's lost, but Ruki just ignores him and goes left, saying the entrance is right up ahead. He instructs him to gaze at that stalactite on the left, the one with a slice. You had to travel through this trail 32 times, and when the slice appeared, it was evidence that the path had altered. The small robot is puzzled, wanting to understand how he reached such an exact conclusion. Clearly, right? It must have been testing and mistakes thousands of times, and Ryuki just orders him to be quiet because he needs to concentrate now. But to please Igan, he clarifies that they had someone in the team who had a special skill that aided in noticing those things, and in the past, before guidebooks were created, people actually used to recall every detail of the map and attempted to navigate that way. So, even though everything shifts, he still has a sense of which direction to take. The robot questions if he really memorized all those small differences from a place as worthless as this and already chuckles, saying he now understands his master is totally crazy. As they proceed through the cave, Ryuki is certain he spent more time here than he desired, not to mention he still didn't grasp why no one had completed this in the past 3 months. Meanwhile, the witch is shouting, saying that apparently he escaped from the maze, but now he'll sink into hopelessness. The moment he steps on the death spell, he'll instantly perish, and man, that's exactly what he just did. Something triggers, a fire surrounds his body. He pauses for a second. Ivan wants to know what occurred, and he responds he's not certain, but it felt like he was going to die if he took another step. Then he pulls out a strange little figure from his inventory and tosses it forward. As soon as it touches the ground, the flames show up again. He identifies them immediately. That was instant death magic, something very rare that should only appear much later at the tower. Why was something like that in this spot? Ivan quickly says that if unknown changes are occurring, it's better to withdraw, and now Yuki is deep in reflection. A trap this harsh right from the beginning was risky. Maybe it'd be wiser to turn back, but when he glances behind him, he sees an odd path, and for a moment, he feels like it'd be fine to go that way. He starts realizing that these instincts, and even the fact he spotted the trap, are all thanks to the gut skill. Watching through the crystal, the witch says this jerk is really fortunate. He survived by a single second, but it was just a matter of time. No matter where he went in this endless maze, eventually he would perish. But suddenly, he vanishes from her crystal. She's confused, casts a new spell, and finds him again, but now it doesn't make sense. He's in the main hall, which is really far from where he was before. Apparently, that darn rat managed to break the illusion. But it's okay. This place is packed with traps, and that's where he'll die. Except, a second later, Rookie vanishes again. She's baffled and slams the table in frustration, trying to figure out what the heck this jerk is doing. Our boy was leaping through the very edges of the traps, avoiding them all. The witch had no clue how he was doing it or why he kept disappearing from her view, so she decides to end it all before anything else goes wrong and triggers all the traps at once. A blue flame engulfs the whole crystal, and she rejoices, saying, "Finally got rid of that cursed trespasser." But behind her, something bursts. A voice from behind says that the materials weren't that great, but there were still things worth using. Igon's voice follows, saying that if he had any sense, he'd turn off that skill immediately. The witch turns and sees the two of them chatting. Eigen scolding him, saying that this new ability of his is totally overpowered, and he can't just wander around with something like that naturally. The witch demands to know how the heck he got there, but our boy says he's too idle to explain, so he's just going to deal with this fast. He knows very well that she's the Witch of Loneliness. No, Miss Unreal. Or rather, there was another name that suited her much better, Bug. The witch says the answer she wants is for that jerk to tell how he escaped the traps. Ruku replies that he nearly lost his head. The route to this place was filled with deadly stuff everywhere. Ivan wants to know why he's speaking in such a strange tone. Just a bit earlier, our boy was staring at the ground, observing the traps and wondering if there was any way to defeat this. Maybe he should wait until the glitch in this place got fixed, but that's when he recalled he needs his name to be recognized by everyone before his old guild comes after him. That's when Ivan says he had detected several traps, and at that point, it was definitely better to retreat. Then half the room exploded, and he jumped aside. Ivan panicked, saying this jerk was trying to kill himself, but then our boy told him to relax. That ability he had acquired was even better than he thought. Back with the witch, he says the gut skill is really great. The guy is even demonstrating to her, telling her that's how he got into the room. That one he wanted to describe in detail. Eigen says that as awesome as it is, it's still tied to a human, so eventually he's going to reach its limit. Ruka prepares to strike, saying that's obvious, but what matters right now is staying alive. Suddenly, the window displaying the witch's name starts glitching, and she yells the intruder's name. Several instant death traps appear in front of her, and Ruki charges in. The first attack comes, he dodges just in time. If not for the skill, he'd be dead. He starts to realize that the witch seemed to be getting corrupted by the glitch in her. Whatever her pattern was, he didn't have time to figure it out. He had to strike now, so he uses Quick Step to get close with his blade aura active. He says she really is dangerous, but this is the end. One clean slice to the neck, separating the body from the robot's head. Ruki thinks that was way too simple, and then the attacks keep coming from the rest of her body that's still there. He manages to retreat, and when he looks again, she's reforming. Now he's certain she's the cause of everything that's been happening in this dungeon, and the issue is normal attacks didn't seem to do anything. She sends another wave of spells toward him, which he manages to evade as he keeps moving forward. At that moment, the key was to keep his gut skill active at maximum because without it, he'd die instantly. As he's dodging, he turns and asks if Igon has any suggestions, and Ivan replies that just to assist the kid, he's going to activate the system so he can try to examine her. As soon as he says to display the window, it appears. Witch of Loneliness, level 25, glitch with infinite regeneration and instant death active. And looking at her, you can see a weird wing on her back with the word death written on it. What he notices is that the wings were oddly colored, so he advances and uses examine, but just on the wings. That's when he discovers this was an item from the game Beyond Space. He recalls that's the same one those dozens of people abandoned in the city came from. Now it made sense what was causing this glitch. While Ryuki evades the attacks, Igon is recording everything and says he's going nuts. In the middle of that situation where a single touch would mean his death, he had a grin on his face. The kid is throwing out social media motivational quotes and says that on the road to the peak of humanity, a fire like this wouldn't halt him. Meanwhile, the witch is preparing a huge attack from behind, saying the darn intruder is going to perish. Ruki sees it and thinks it's pretty straightforward. If a single touch means death, then just don't let it touch you. The boss keeps powering up the crystal until suddenly it bursts in the middle of the room. She seemed confident, said there was no way he could have avoided that, so this time he was dead. But, of course, Ryuka already had his blade on his back, going in pure determination. Actually, he was already riding on her back, saying that this wasn't her original power, and that's why she couldn't control it properly. Just by touching it, the item seemed to be sort of vanishing or interacting in a strange way. Clearly, this was a glitch. The witch, frantic, tells him not to cut it because those wings gave her liberty. She had been playing her role in this dungeon for a long time, never questioning it, just moving forward. But then she found those wings on the ground, and that freed her from that magic, and she was finally able to live. Ryuku replies that if she escaped from the circumstances they were in, then they were similar in a way. He was also struggling to break free from this awful world. The witch says that if that's the case, then they should understand each other, but Arcane of social media quotes just says that for him to achieve glory, her liberty has to be ruined, and with that, he tears off her wings. Man, he even activated the blade's aura in his other hand to crush the second wing, and then she seems to have been defeated. At that same moment, all of the witch's stats return to normal, right? and she becomes just the creature she was meant to be in this place. She even resumes her usual routine, saying that the intruder invaded her hideout. The poor thing is they're giving her speech, but he just stabs the blade into her chest. Yeah, this guy's not hesitating at all, and on top of that, he pulls it to the side, slicing her completely, saying that now that she's back to normal, nothing changes. He has to finish her off to keep progressing. With that, the monster's little hand just falls to the ground, right? No mercy from the kid. In total, he received 13 standard tickets and 1 SR ticket, plus 500 experience points, a magic gem, and Serial's heart. Ryuki was kind of disappointed. Just a small gem, a heart, and 500 points. That knight who gave 15,000 apparently was kind of unusual. Eigen tells the kid that even with luck, he's not always going to get great loot. Man, he needs to get used to a regular life. Toshi replies that it's all fine. An SR ticket alone was more than enough to make it worth it. Besides, what matters is surpassing Linful's record. At the dungeon's entrance, the guy with the big axe is furious because they failed again. The guys are all cursing each other out, blaming one another, saying it's because he died because he did this or that. Meanwhile, in the cave, Ryuki is coming out, hearing all the noise. Right at that moment, one of the guys is talking about teamwork. They see our kid passing by and say, "It's amazing he stayed inside for 7 hours. He must have hidden a lot." But now, seeing him walking away, they figure he gave up. Time for the kid to face reality. But then, a small window pops up behind the fool, showing updated dungeon info. In the witch's hideout, our guy finished in 7 hours, man. 10 hours less than dear Linful. The guys are already wondering if this isn't the same guy who just came out of that place. Suddenly, the dude puts his blade next to Ruki's neck and tells him to stay put, wanting to know what little trick he used. It's impossible for someone to cut off 10 hours without using some kind of cheat or something. Ruki is honest, man. He just says there really was a glitch, and he used it to finish quickly. That's it. The good thing about honesty is that no one questions if he's lying. The bad thing is that now everyone is saying that jerks should be ashamed for clearing a dungeon using stuff like that. But Ryuki just keeps strolling, saying, the glitch is gone now. They better get to grinding quick, or they'll stay weak forever. The sword guy tries to go at him, saying a cheating jerk like him has no right to give moral lessons, but our boy just avoids it easily. Maybe hits him with a punch and elbow, not sure. Maybe just shoves him. All I know is the fool ends up on all fours on the ground while our kid walks away.